Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. It is October, which brings to mind witches and goblins and pumpkin spice lattes and all of the things, leaves changing and all that. And so we too are of the witchy mindset, and we have a witch with us as a guest today. So we are very excited. Her name is Nicole Shook. She is a hairstylist by trade, but she has been a practicing witch since 2013. She found ritual magic in 2021 and has been practicing for a little over a year and a half. So we are so excited to talk to you, Nicole, and learn all about your life as a witch. So welcome to Madness Cafe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
This is super exciting because of the power of women in witchery. And I would love to hear your take, Nicole, on how you really got started in this and what drew you to becoming a witch.
If I look back, I really think that I've always been kind of drawn to it, but I had to get rid of a lot of that dogma of like, was I doing something bad? Was I going to conjure a demon? Was I, all the stuff that we have been like force fed to believing into the power of witchcraft. And it took me a while to kind of like find myself and also like be, I think, mature enough to actually understand divinity in my own mind and the practices that come along with it and the respect that they deserve. I had to also get over like imposter syndrome, which I'm still trying to get over. And so what happened is that in 2013, I picked that date basically because I had a person in my life that had passed away unexpectedly. It was a car accident. It hit me so hard. It hit me so hard. And I didn't feel like it was like I've been around death. I had never like experienced this one the way I experienced it. It really felt like I physically had a hole in my chest and a wound that was there. So I asked the question, why? And I followed the breadcrumbs. And it started with like, am I an empath? And like reading stuff that I was like, oh my God, I could have wrote this, right? And that might have been like my gateway drug, if you will. And I did as much as I could back then on the internet and researching it until I had met up with some people that helped me actually go into the metaphysical world and look at classes about strengthening my intuition. And because it was safer to go through metaphysics stuff like Reiki and like sound healing and, that kind of stuff. That was like easier for me than to go straight into witchcraft because, again, I still was trying to figure out what I needed to get rid of emotionally and energetically to move forward.
So there was a lot of unlearning that you had to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of the stuff that I feel that, and I can unpack a lot of the stuff, like even in Christianity, there's so much stuff that we have like been told. And I mean, we're still paying for the eating of the apple since, way back when, right? Like,
Tell me.
Every place that I had been to, I didn't quite fit, or like there were still these, like, that's almost right. Like, there's still these wounds or people telling me what to do, which I didn't want. I wanted to explore this and journey this in a way that was supposed to be free and opening. And they promise like free and opening. And then you're like, once you say stuff like, I don't know, Lucifer, or you talk about like, how do you feel about hell? Like, they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. But like, we have to explore this. Like, I have to unpack it and figure out what fits and what doesn't. And I think it's one of those things that you do multiple times. It's not one of those things that you like, it's like redecorating your room. Like you redecorate it once, you've got some stuff, but then they get old and dusty. Well, now we need to revisit this, take all the stuff that doesn't serve me anymore and put up what I've learned now as a new human being with new eyes. So I can't remember when I really decided that like witchcraft was it. And even witchcraft has got its own like, well, you have to do it this way and you have to honor these gods and you have to do this deity and you have to do it this way. You're doing it wrong. And it's like that also didn't feel quite right. I ended up calling myself a witch because there were no boundaries to it.
Mm.
I see.
I could do what I wanted without somebody, especially as a solitary witch. Like covens have rules
Mhm.
depending on who is the leader of them or who created it. They
Okay.
still have boundaries and things they want you to do. So my version, I would say, of witchcraft has come to a point where I esoterically look at the Bible. It's always been something I've been drawn to. I feel there was a lot more meaning there than what was given to me and what we were using it for. I remember this one thing that I did, and I was 40. I remember because I was like, I want to know what Jesus is like as a 40-year-old woman, like as just through my eyes, not through anybody telling me. I'm a horrible reader because I have dyslexia and stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to go to Netflix because this is how the universe works. If I just go to Netflix and pick out the first one that says Jesus on it, this is what we're doing. And I knew I was in the right place because there was an actress in the show or in the movie that was in a previous movie that I watched. So I knew I was in the right place. Those were my breadcrumbs, right? So I'm watching it, and there's a part in there where like Jesus is literally like throwing things and he's all mad. And I'm like, why is Jesus so mad? Like, I don't remember this. And I realized at that moment that we kind of got it all wrong. Or at least I was told that it was all wrong because we are not accepting everybody for who they are. We're accepting
Mhm.
people what we decided was good or bad.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
But you still can't talk about Christianity in a metaphysical environment because they've also have their own wounds with religion. And these wounds haven't been dealt with. So then you get kind of looked at weird or, like shunned because you even brought it up. Or you don't have
Mhm.
anybody, I don't have a backboard to like talk it through even. Like people aren't even willing to like open up a conversation and talk about it.
Well, let
Whether
me
it's
ask you a question because this is really interesting to me because I think religion is pervasive in all things. And Raquel will tell you I've proclaimed
Mhm.
myself an atheist, and then other people will say it's not true, that I'm very spiritual or whatever. And I was going to ask you the question about, is witchcraft spiritual? But now you've opened this religion box. People don't want to talk about it. What is the question you really want to ask and put on the table and discuss? What's that thing you've been like, I just want to talk this out with somebody?
Oh, I have all of the questions. Like I don't have just one. I've got I'm like, for me, in my journey so far, because this is about gathering information before I actually make a clear decision. And I don't think I'll ever make a clear decision.
Mhm.
But like for me, I believe that all religions are the same. They either came through different, not religion, spirituality, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like it came through, but it came through either different filters.
Right.
So it was sought as different filters. So if we put it all together, we would have one complete thing, almost like
Mhm.
puzzle pieces. Puzzle pieces is another thing that I've thought about is like everybody was given a different puzzle piece. And instead of sharing our puzzle piece and putting them together, we're like, no, it's my puzzle piece. You can have it.
Yeah. Yeah. That very much makes sense.
Because we do have the stories that are similar to like Jesus and he shows up in different places, no matter what title you give him.
Right.
Angels are another one. Angels are very much widespread in all different sort of religions. And if I say angels, people are way more easy to accept angel energy than they are like if I talk about Christ consciousness or Jesus, because I mean it's all triggering. And I have to debunk, or I have to like tell people like I don't believe it in the way you thought you, or the way you were taught it is, or the way you shunned it. Not shunned it. I don't know. I try to have a container to just have the conversation, because the more we have the conversation, even debating, like we've lost debating. Debating is a great tool to make me understand what I believe, or expand the knowledge of like what I just expand my knowledge. Whether we come away agreeing or disagreeing, that's not the point. The point is we're having a conversation about it.
You know, what you're talking about, especially the part about coven versus being a solitary witch, I think that was the term that you used. That reminds me very much of, Jennifer brought up spirituality, and she says that she's an atheist, but you know, in spirituality, like I have said for years, decades, that I consider myself to be spiritual, but I don't consider myself to be religious, because I don't hold to a specific dogma, and I don't follow a set in stone, these are the rules you must follow thing. If I were to get involved in witchcraft to some extent, I would probably either be a solitary witch, or I would just maybe create my own coven. And just,
you want to be the leader.
Well, not really the leader. I just want to have, an organization. I want to have like-minded people to talk with, like what we're doing now. I want to have more of a salon of witches, not, a coven where everybody has to be exactly the same.
Is that the thing in a coven? Do they all have to be the same in a coven?
Well, I guess I really don't know. My experience with a coven is like I only had one. And it was a very interesting experience, because we're talking about energy and connecting people's energy. And like, with this particular coven, the way it was shown to me was like, we all have particular energies and particular things that we hold truths that we have, right? In this particular way, it was almost showed to me like in a pentacle, which is the star with a circle around it. It was shown to me like it was trying to balance out the energy between all of us. So like if one person has a belief that money is bad and the other people don't, it's trying to equal out that energy. And what we had found in real life is that like I'm very good at flowing with financial resources, and it comes in, it goes out. It's healthy. I respect it. I am friends with it, but that's not what we're taught. And that's definitely not what other generations believe. Like I was brought up, it's taken me a long time to kind of decode this in my own self, because we were brought up like, money doesn't grow in trees. Money is bad. Money is evil. Money is the root of all evil, like, and greed. But it's not money's fault, right? Like you don't blame the hammer for, hitting somebody in the head, because you can use a hammer for assaulting, or you can use a hammer to build a house for shelter for people that need it, right? There's things that you use it for. It's something we use. So somebody had talked about how energy, or how money is energy. And it is. If you think about it, it is your physical energy that you have manifested. So like if I do a haircut for you, that's my energy on you, right? So then you give me energy that you saved up in form of bills.
Got it. Would one definition of witchcraft be a utilization of, or a manipulation of the energies around us.
Absolutely.
So we all have, or let me ask, do we all have the ability to manipulate that energy? Do we all have the ability to be witches or to utilize the tools of witchcraft?
Absolutely. We're all doing it anyway. Perfect example is the birthday candle on your cake, right? You make a
Mhm,
wish and you blow out
mhm,
a candle. Like
right.
that's very witchy. Even like when we talk about creating your own universe, like you're either creating it on purpose or you're creating it by default. And witchcraft helps with like I feel like with witchcraft, there's two types of energy. There's a lower energy and a higher energy. But when I say lower, I don't mean less and I don't mean it's bad. Lower energy was explained to me like when I do a spell or if I concoct a potion, it's done with like crystals and herbs and stuff. So I'm taking energy, utilizing the energy from the rosemary, from the amethyst, from the oil I use, from whatever I've decided to use. Where higher magic is basically using the energy from like the planets or the stars, or it's more like an unseen kind of, it's not physically manifested. It's a little more subtler.
Is this power of the mind stuff?
Yes.
There was an article that I read, and there's one quote that stood out to me. And it says, the latest witch renaissance coincides with a growing fascination with astrology, crystals, and tarot, which, like magic, practitioners consider ways to tap into unseen, unconventional sources of power, and which can be especially appealing for people who feel disenfranchised or who have grown weary of trying to enact change by working within the system.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way, it's like we're all feeling like we're all trying to find ways to connect
Power.
with this energy
Mm-hmm.
that's in the universe, whether we want to talk about it as metaphysical or just physically the energy in your body or the feelings that emotions carry or the feelings that religions impart on people and the energy they impart. It feels like it's all part of a continuum to me.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like because that's exactly what the gateway was for me. First, it was crystals. Love them, shiny. I keep them around my house. I keep them in my pocket. They're always there with me. Herbs are another one that we use all the time. There's a lot of kitchen witches that do a lot of good with just the herbs that they have. For me, astrology was another thing. I went through all the stuff. I was taking this class, this class, this class, this class, and I was like, I don't understand what I'm doing at this point because I kept trying to figure out like where am I going? What am I using this for? I'm just gathering all this data. And none of it really fit. You know, like when you're a kid and you're like, oh, I'm gonna try this, this like instrument, I'm gonna try this
Mhm.
sport. And it felt the same way. I was like, oh, numerology, I gotta do this. And then I'm like, oh, I got a astrology in it. I'm gonna do this one. And I would do it and I would be like, that was cool. Now what? But I
Okay.
didn't want to be like become an astrologist. Like I wasn't like, oh, this is it. I found it. It was like, all right, that's cool, but like I don't know if I need to like go down that deep of a wormhole for that. But what do I use it for? So then, in true universe fashion, and of course I'm stubborn, so and I listened to a lot of books through Audible, and you know how they have those suggestions, right?
Mhm.
So this book came up, and I was like, I'm not reading it. I'm not reading that. It had a guy on it. And these are all my preconceived notions of guys and tattoos, and especially which is really funny because I'm fully tattooed, but that's beside the point. Men in a fully women place, like especially in hairdressing. So there's a thing that happens in these societies that are dominated by women. You get one man in there because like there's not a lot of male hairdressers, straight hair hairdressers, right? So these men get like their egos kind of inflated because they're the only ones there. And I don't
Yeah.
blame them, because all of these women that are trying to like be noticed and seen and all that kind of stuff. And so I have this like, I don't know, prejudice almost, where I'm like, ew, I am not reading that. Not reading that.
Yeah, I would do the same thing. I would do that. I'm not reading that man's book. No.
Not listen
Right.
to some guy tell me stuff I already know.
Right. Like, no, I don't want to do that. But it kept showing up, right? It was in my face. It was in my face. Fine, I'll read it. So I read it. And of course, like, changed my life. Like,
What was it?
it was called High Magic.
Oh.
What I knew about ritual magic at that point was literally what I found in the movie. I have to wear a weird robe and I have to chant weird things. And there's probably a demon involved or something. I don't know. It's way above my head. Or that's how that's how you get things, right? Like you cast a circle and you do all this stuff, and that's how things manifest.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting because this guy, I read his book and he talked about the Bible in an esoteric way. He talked about like, oh, well, when they talk about Jesus feeding the masses with the 2 fishes, they're talking about Pisces. And I was like, what? They're talking about Pisces?
Interesting. That's interesting.
Right. So he believes that the Bible is the history of magic and we've just read it wrong.
Interesting.
And I was like, they talked about following the man with the water pitcher through the veil. Well, back then, men didn't carry water pitchers. That was women's work. They would never carry a water pitcher. They're talking about Aquarius. Because
That's me.
Aquarius, see?
Huh.
They're talking about Aquarius. Because we're in the age of Aquarius now. We're supposed to follow the man with the water pitcher.
You're supposed to follow me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I
Following
will
you,
follow
Jennifer.
anywhere.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, people out there. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Although Aquariuses often think that people should follow us. So it's,
Well, you're an air sign.
Right.
And you're about the masses. You are a true, like the little bit that I know, because there's so much more. You do very well of like leading people, like being the manager.
Jennifer, you're a natural leader.
All right. One of the things you said when we first got on is that you were afraid of maybe evoking a demon, or I think the thing I always think about is, am I opening my door to like spirits, and that led me to think about, is there a difference between dark magic and light magic? Are there witches out there that are conjuring up things to invoke darkness? Or is that myth of movie?
Yes and no. Magic is neither like white or black, right? Like it is very much what you use it for. So some people would consider, like, if I manipulate somebody into doing what I want them to do, then that would be more of the darker side of magic or energy.
But people do that without magic all the time. They just do it with their
All
words.
the
So
time.
like,
I mean, we
right.
do it as parents when we try to get our kid to bed on a certain time.
Or to
Like, we're
put
trying
their socks on and get out the door.
Absolutely. Like we do
Right.
this kind of like little bit of this energetic work already, like try to win an argument, try to like get people to see your side of it. We do it naturally. When I started, it was more of calling up angels and purifying my energetic field of the elements. So we have 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. What I really loved about getting into ritual magic, it gave me spiritual substance. It gave me my own church. So I, on a daily basis, call up these angels, go through, and I have these particular rituals that I go through that are cleansing my energetic field. It helped me. It was like I found something to do with everything that I collected, all of the information, it all like fit together. And the funny thing is, the guy that I'm talking about, the book that I read, I had to know him. Like I read the book and I was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. So I realized that he's on Patreon because of course I went to YouTube and devoured all of that information. And then I was like, I need more. So he was on Patreon. Do you guys know what Patreon is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One day
So-
we will have one. So everybody hold on for that.
Do it.
Yep.
So I went on Patreon and I realized like, okay, I'm willing. First I was skeptical because I'm always skeptical. I'm like, I'm gonna give this guy money. And then I was like, okay, so if I give him this much, I get to know this stuff sooner or whatever. But if I give him a little bit more, I get to talk to him.
Oh, cool.
Okay. And it was something like weird, like a reading or something. I go, I don't want a reading from him. That seems silly. I need information. He's basically my mentor. And talked to him that first time and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I am literally a blank slate. Tell me how we do this. Show me what ritual magic is. And it's went on since then. So now with him, I'm actually a tutor in ritual magic for other students that follow him.
So what learning did you take away from him to really get started with your own witchiness? I don't have the right words for this. With your own witch practice, witchcraft?
It made the subtle louder.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we talk about The Secret, did you guys watch The Secret?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
It's a good starting point to understand the way to manifest stuff into your world.
Okay.
It's like a baby step, right? It'll
Okay.
give you, it's used to terminology and kind of how it works. With this, it made it louder. So stuff that I could manipulate, like if I need a new car, if I like needed my rent paid, or if I am looking for a career change. Like I really was looking to how do I get from, and I love being a hairdresser, but I know that my body's not going to do this forever. So I needed to transition into something I can do to help people in a way that I wouldn't be standing behind the chair for 40 hours a week, right? It gave me this platform to start off of. And mind you, he never tells me what to do. He's never like, oh, you got to do it this way, or like it's not about that control. It's really more about you finding out what's best for you and listening to you and empowering yourself.
He's your witch therapist.
He totally is.
I love that term.
He totally is. This full moon that we got going on right now was a doozy, and I had a whole thing on Friday, and I was like, he was my witch therapist.
Okay, so I have a question, and this is probably going to get me a lot of heat.
Oh, good. Bring it on.
I like heat.
I mean, not so much from y'all, but from maybe people who listen. So
Bring it on.
Manifesting, which could be called a part of witchcraft, is that similar to praying?
Absolutely. It's like intentions.
And asking for guidance. So
Witchcraft,
say
spirituality, religion.
Praying and witchcraft and religion are
all come wrapped
so
in a different
apart.
package.
Like, let me tell you, when I spiritual cleanse a house, I use Lord's Prayer. I use it every time. It always works. Michael and Jesus always come, they always like are there with me. They don't discriminate against me and how I believe because I believe in them. And I know that I'm trying to do the best I can with what I got. Every day I try to wake up to be a better person than I was the day before. That's it.
Wow.
What's the Lord's Prayer?
Do you want me to do it now? I mean, it's really just a series of words that have power in them.
I can look it up. I should know this by heart.
I know, and I do say it by myself, but now that I'm like
if my mom listens to this, she's
I'm
gonna be like,
notorious for putting people on the spot.
no, I'm pulling it up right now. My mom is going to be really upset that I don't know this by heart, people. So just be a
It's
little
Our
disappointed.
Father
It's fine.
who art in
Yeah.
heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give
Give
us
us our
this
day, our daily
our-
bread.
and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Lead us
And
not
lead us
into
not into
temptation,
temptation, but
but
deliver us from
from
evil.
evil. For
For
thine is
thine
the
is the
power,
kingdom,
or the
and the-
kingdom, and the power,
and the power,
and the
and the glory
of
forever.
God, forever and
Amen.
ever. Amen. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. That was so good, the two of you. Excellent.
Yeah.
I know that when we talked to you about doing this podcast, we said it's a feminist podcast. We want to talk about feminism and witchcraft. And you said you didn't know a whole lot about feminism, which is cool. But I'm going to ask the question anyway, and maybe Raquel will answer it. Maybe you'll answer it. Maybe I'll answer it. Is witchcraft a form of feminism?
Well, what's the definition of feminism?
Okay, she put me on the spot.
Yes,
like
she
that.
did.
Yes, she did. For me, feminism is very simple. It is just the support of women to self-actualize, to do whatever it is they want to do.
My question is to that though, is like, are you negating men at the same time?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Mm-mm. No,
No.
it's actualization of self as a woman has nothing to do with taking away from men.
I'm not trying to take away.
No,
What-
it's a good question.
It's very important because the stuff I study is very much like, especially in esoteric talk, you talk about balances. You
Yeah.
need both to have a balance, because if not, you're just swinging the pendulum from one side to the other, and then you have
Mhm.
polarity, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we know, especially in this day and age, that polarity is not where we need to sit, right? We
Mhm.
need to sit firmly in like the middle. At least that's the way I kind of have looked at it, is like it never feels right if there's just too much of one thing, which is hard because you don't want to like, it's hard because we've suffered so much at one side or the other
Mhm.
that it's hard to sit in the middle, firmly sit there and see it for almost like a truth. Yeah, that's what I got. I don't know.
See, what I see in that is that I believe, and I think Raquel does too, but she can speak for herself. I think that patriarchy has equally harmed men and women, because
Mhm.
men and women both have feminine and masculine qualities, or feminine and masculine energy, or however you want to look at it.
Absolutely.
And in the suppressing of the feminine in our culture, especially towards those who identify as female, has harmed us, men and women. So
Mhm.
I guess what I'm saying is to bring that feminine power back up into that equal polarity that you're talking about, because we have suppressed the feminine in females, but also in males.
Absolutely.
So I see what you're
Right.
saying. And I really love the question. I love the question. I love that these are the deep things that we need to talk about and clarify.
I've tried to talk about, or tried to heal lately in my practices. I've been thinking about the divine masculine.
Yes,
What is
it's
that,
important.
right? Absolutely. Because not only do I need the men around me to step into their divine masculine, what's hard about right now is that I feel like we are taking away, and forgive me if these are triggering, because I don't mean them to be triggering. We're taking away from men to empower women, but there's something toxic about that, where it's almost like you're we didn't tell them how to be, and now
We
that
talk
we're
about
like,
that a lot.
yeah,
Mhm.
like, you know, like, okay, so now you're not supposed to be like this, but we didn't give you anything to fill that back up with.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
like,
I agree.
okay,
Which is where toxic masculinity comes in, because they fill it with all kinds of other things like hostility, hyperaggression, and tamping down any
Trumpism.
part of their, well, Trumpism, yeah, and tamping down any part of their quote unquote feminine energy, which they see as weak.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely,
Or
because
not
that's what
all,
they
not
were
all
taught
of them
to.
see it as weak, but
No,
yes,
we're not
but
trying.
that's what they're taught, right? So feminism is the realization that we all have masculine and feminine energy. We all do. Whether or not we tap into that is a whole other story. But
For sure.
feminism wants to have the equal opportunity to tap into all of that and to utilize it in a way that is powerful and useful and just for everyone, not just for men.
Well, and see, that's the thing, is we need to see the power in receiving. We think power as humans, and where our mental like evolution is right now, we don't see receiving as being powerful. But if you look at it, you have the sun that is projected, right? Like it comes out and it extends life. This is why I'm saying that a lot of the stuff we've been translated it wrong. The moon that we have deemed as a feminine energy, she is receiving this energy from the masculine. The sun is the masculine and the moon is the feminine, we don't see how powerful that the moon really is. But you think about it, she's receiving her light from the sun. She is projecting it back onto the earth. There is stuff that is powerful there that we have no idea, like she moves water. A lot of births go on the moon. Full people act differently on the full moon. There's more power on the full moon. All of that stuff is stuff that we can't see. So then we deem it less powerful.
Are we in a full moon right now?
Yep, today is a full moon.
Today's the full moon. What kind of energy comes from a full moon, and how would someone who is a practicing witch utilize that?
So the moon you can break down in all sorts of ways, because like a new moon or a dark moon is where we would like plant a seed and watch it grow. And as the moon grows into the full moon, your manifestation would grow with it. Going back down though, too, is going from a full moon to a new moon is stuff we want to get rid of because the moon is getting smaller.
These are the same yogic principles.
Yes.
But it's
well,
done
that's
with,
the thing. It's all connected, right?
It's also connected to like agrarian societies, right? Like you think about Farmer's Almanac.
Yep.
There were things that were done according to cycles of the moon and cycles of seasons. You have the fall harvest. You plant certain crops according to phases of the moon and phases of the weather. It's all really connected. I think the fact that there's the recognition by more people that this is all connected is a little bit frightening to the patriarchy, because it shows that
or religion.
It's all exactly in religion, because it's all connected. With the rise of a lot of strict dogmatic religions, there was the pushing down and tamping down of pagan, natural, indigenous practices that were tied to nature. There was a way of sort of demonizing that by calling it witchcraft.
Well,
yeah, and then burning women at the stake.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because we're powerful, so of course they would burn us to get that power, so that we were smaller. And
it's control. You control the
Absolutely.
masses by using the example of the witch and killing her.
Let me get my thoughts together. They're all talking at one time. So we went to Salem, and I thought it was so interesting that most of the people in Salem that died weren't witches.
Interesting.
They were actually people that owned property.
Control.
Wow.
Stealing of property.
So this mass hysteria went throughout the whole thing. And like there were people turning themselves in, and they're like, I think I'm a witch. And they would put them in jail. And they would put kids in jail, and and you could be put in jail for, like, a midwife was put in jail because of the healing practices she had. And one of the women, you know, one of the women couldn't have any of her babies like live, which is very sad, but she blamed it on her. So these are some of the, like, they just pointed their fingers at people. If I back then said I was a witch, like they captured me and they put me on trial and all that stuff, they put me in jail. You had to pay for your jail and your bindings, like your cuffs and stuff like that. You had to pay for all that. If I actually said I was a witch, they would take away all my property. And, you know, your name was really big back then. So,
Kind
like,
of sounds like the prison system now.
basically, yes. The governor finally came back from wherever he was because his wife was accused of being a witch as well. And he came back and like straightened everything out, but banded any talk about it. So this is one of the first like conspiracies that like we would have never known about the history of this if somebody didn't take it back to England and write down everything. But he banned the talk of the whole Salem witch trials and everything.
Interesting. So what I think I want to know, do you cast spells, and what kind of spells what do you do?
Yes. Anything from healing a sick friend. I can send energy. I can build energy up and send it. I created a couple potions for like love and protection.
When you say love, is it like a love spell to make somebody love somebody else?
No, it's just more of a universal kind of love. You know, it's funny because here in America, we only have one word for love. Love is so much bigger than that word. Sometimes I just do things intuitively. So I made these potions and I gave it to this one guy because I made 6 potions. I was doing pink for the loved ones, and I had specific things that I put in it, and I did black for the protection one. But I made this one little oddball one on accident. And I had it was a love potion, but I had put black on top of it. And I was like, well, that doesn't match the rest of them. So I gave it to my friend and I was like, use it at your leisure. Let me know what happens, right? And what I wanted to do is make this very much interactive. So you needed to break it. It was in a bottle. You needed to break it.
Like smash it against the wall or something?
Yeah, almost like beat it with a hammer is how I thought it, because I'm kind of passive, I guess, sometimes. You need to put some action in it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Got it.
What came out to that was more of a family healing. And that's what really came up for him. And I thought that was super cool because, like, you know, a lot of times I just do these things. I need the validation, or, you know, like I'm a scientist. I'm like, do this and then tell me everything. I cast spell for money. I cast spell I had a whole thing with the tax and the unemployment thing, 2020, and a whole thing with that. That came out great. Like, this is the one thing about spellcasting though, is you got to have faith. First of all, I can't micromanage it, and I have to have faith that it's working. Those are hard.
That would be the hard part. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that magic helps with. Even if you have to put in a little bit of action, which is most of the time what it will do, it'll guide you into putting in a little more action. If you're hearing the same thing over and over again, that's pattern. You're not listening.
This is all making me think a little bit. I mean, these are big things that come up from time to time. You talked in the beginning about ritual magic. And one thing that I'm interested in is things that you do on a regular basis, almost like self-care, but you do them all the time. What are some of the rituals that you do? Or, maybe just one if you don't want to get into all of it, but I'd be interested in hearing about that part of magic for you.
So what I'm doing on a daily basis is and if I can, I'll do it twice. And I'm going to be teaching a course on this in January.
Send us the link to that, please.
I will. And it's going to
her-
be an Even Star Chalice in Ypsi.
Mhm.
Or their institute. I'm not sure which, but they're both in Ypsi.
Ypsilanti, Michigan, for those of you out of the state. Fly in, stay with me. We'll go together.
So the first thing that we start off with is like they do breath work, and that's boring. So I don't really.
I've been doing a lot of breath work with yoga. I'm telling you, this is all connected.
It's moving the energy.
Well, because like when I visualize taking in energy, it's through my nose. And the way that my mentor talks about it is you bring it in and you put it in the earth because it refines it into the earth, and then it will come out into my hand. So the first ritual that I really do that's really helpful is lesser banishing ritual. So
What's it called?
The lesser banishing ritual.
Oh, okay.
And you can Google it. There's a bunch of stuff out there on it. It was super weird for me to do this at first because I am vibrating Hebrew names out loud of divinity, and I am also vibrating angel names. So I have a little witch's like room, and I'm better at it now that I've been doing it for a while, but like I was it's very embarrassing for me at first. When I would do it in my house, I would almost be like, are they listening? I think they're. And my daughter did come up to me and goes, Mom, what are you doing? And I'm like, they're just angel names. It's fine. What you would do is you basically start at east and you banish air and you make a star. And you're pulling the stuff from the earth to the heavens. So what we're doing is we're banishing these impurities that we've got inside of us with each element. Mm-hmm. So air would be like overthinking is a really good way.
Oh, banish that, baby. Banish that.
Right. Yep. Got a lot of that going on.
Fire is like anger and frustration. Water
I got a lot of that too.
Emotions and earth, right? So this is what we're doing. We're doing alchemy, basically. So we're taking away the impurities of each element inside of our aura. And you go through that little by little, it's refining it. So then the next thing that we do is an invoking ritual, which is the same ritual, but now we're bringing pure air spirit into our aura to replace what we took out. In this universe, you have to replace what you take out. So if I do a house cleansing and take out all the energy, I have to fill it with something else, or something else will fill it for you. And then it gets a little more complicated after that because there's also, we do the middle pillar, which is kind of like the chakras, but it's done with the hermetic tree of life. So there's different spheres. Because you have a spirit sphere, which is Kethra, it's right above your head. There's another one for your throat, which is like a pearly gray. There's your Tipara center, which is over your heart and it's gold. There's one at your hips, and I forget what it's called, but it's purple. And there's one at your feet, which is Malkuth, and that's black. Mm-hmm. And it runs from divine all the way to the earth. So you're connected from the top to the bottom.
Okay. This is making me think about two things. One, our interview that we did with Tin and her book about the chakras and healing.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to get this wrong somehow, but y'all know I'm not the most religious girl in the world, but the saying, as above, so below.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's all connected.
It's all connected.
If you
It's all
just
connected.
focus
Mhm.
on what is above, what is below, what is within, what is without, that'll change your whole world. If you really start to dig into it, you created your whole world. So whatever you don't like in your world, like that woman that yells at you, you created her.
Mm,
So
mm.
what inside of you needs her to yell at you,
Oh,
I hear you.
right?
I've been
Yeah.
asking myself that question. Yep. What is drawing it in? What in me is
Mhm.
drawing it in?
Because
Therapy.
if you were therapy,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. And I'm telling you what, we are on a break of like, we are not talking about mental illness enough. We are
Mhm.
giving it lip service. We're not doing anything about it. It's so hard for me because I'm like, okay, so even like if we break it down to even like how people say that people that collect unemployment are lazy, right? Because that's what I was told my whole life.
Mm,
Even if we look at that, if we say they're lazy, like that's mental illness. That right there is not the fact that they need unemployment, because a healthy human wants to do things. They want to create, they want to do stuff, but we don't have that kind of society where we're actually treating people and giving them enough. Oh, how do I make this make sense?
Space.
Yeah,
We're not
Resources.
get
resources, space.
resources.
Mhm.
And the whole thing is we have them,
Yeah.
but we're in a place where we think we're not enough, so we don't have enough. Okay, so I have a whole theory on this. It's a theory, so forgive me, but I have deemed it the death of the white man. And
Okay.
Okay, I
mean
like
that.
the sound of it so far.
I know. Keep going. Let's hear
So-
Keep
this.
going.
Started with Trump. My theory is it is more of a consciousness. It's not like physical death for like people, because we need people.
Right.
We love people.
And men. We love men.
I want them all to thrive, right? Because being an empath, if you feel better, I feel better. It's a win-win. So
Right.
let's do this. With Trump coming in, he was the last hurrah. Like, you know how when people are dying, they talk about,
Oh.
they have this like
Yep.
rally. So they know their time is, and I say they because I mean them more as entity. I want to stress this enough. I'm not talking about the actual human beings,
Right.
because it's more of the entity that is
Energy.
controlling them.
Right.
Right. So back then, before, I don't know, I'll just say back then. Back then, the only way to survive is to take from somebody else. That we don't live in that world anymore. Also, the only way to be powerful is to make somebody less powerful. But the time and the energy has shifted. That it no longer serves us anymore. The
Agreed.
problem is that they can't see how to be powerful for everybody.
Mhm. They don't know how to tap into their feminine energy, and they're afraid of the rise of feminine energy because they
Well,
see it
because they're
as
thinking it
they're
like
losing something. Right.
absolutely, absolutely. They're thinking it through their lens.
We're right back to where
So
we need to create that balance.
Yep.
absolutely. It's not about making somebody do something. You have to give them enough knowledge and information and love for them to make the decision that's right for them. And then you
Mhm.
can't judge the fact that that's the right decision for them. So because we're going into the age of Aquarius, right?
Mhm.
We forget how traumatized birth is. We
Oh, I have
never
not
talk.
forgotten.
We don't talk about how traumatizing birth is, right? Our own
Mhm.
birth.
Yeah.
We were in this nice warm place. We come out through this dark hole and then we're born, right? We never talk about that kind of trauma. Right now, where we're at in the timeline, and I don't really have like a time that it's going to take or how long it would last. We're in the birth canal now.
Agreed.
So
Mhm.
this will be a little darker because what we're doing
And
is
scary. Dark and
it's
scary.
absolutely, because we don't know.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that's what makes us fearful is we don't know. This is where faith steps in.
Mhm.
But we have lost our faith. We don't know how to use it. Nobody's taught us how to like look into it or what to believe, or we're kind of like lost at this point because the energy is changing and because of what we've built out there right now no longer resonates with the vibration that we have now, we're going to see destruction. And destruction is a part of God because it's generate, order, and destroy. We have to have the destroy in there so we can generate it again. You're going to see this where the old energy that no longer serves us is, like in hospitals is a big one, right? We know that nurses aren't being taken care of. We know that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be sorted out through there. We also talk about banking's going to get hit. That needs to be restructured. Government needs to be restructured. Because all of this old thinking can't survive, and it won't. It just won't. They're going to fight because it's what they know, but it's really not going to survive.
I'm
We
for
just
that.
have to get it through this, right? We have to get through this.
All right. Is there anything that you wanted to specifically say to our audience that you didn't get the chance to?
I guess find your joy. Find what makes you happy and do that, because that's what we need. If more people found their joy, we wouldn't have all this, really.
Wow. I think
That's
if
a
more
good
people
note.
were allowed to find their joy too.
Absolutely. That's a huge
Yeah.
one. Like we're actually getting, we think we need permission, right? To be joyful.
I love that. Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
What a
Find your
great
joy.
discussion.
I could go for days for this.
Me too. Me too. Me too.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Love the ending on the note of find your joy. I like that a lot. And not waiting for permission to find your joy. Yeah. And who knew that a conversation about being a modern day witch would end on finding your joy? I love that.
I feel like I knew it would.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think that I've always thought that religion, spirituality, now I'm going to put yoga in there because everything she talked about is exactly what I'm studying right now. It just has another name.
Right.
They are all connected. I've always thought that. And at the end of the day, if none of it exists, an afterlife, whatever, and this is our one and only life, our one and only, and it ends the day it ends, how do you want to spend it?
Being joyful and just being joyful.
Right. And we're bargaining on an afterlife when we should be living our life.
Yes, we should be living our life right now.
It doesn't matter if it's Christian, if it's Wiccan, if it's yogic, if it's all the other, I know there's a million religions out there. It doesn't matter which one it is. You know, Oprah always said, there are many paths. They all lead to the same thing.
Yes. Yes. And I think Nicole was leading to that when she was talking about how there's a running through line. All of these religions came from the same point, right? I mean, they may not want to admit it, but they all come from the same point. And there's a lot of similarities in these major world religions.
Yeah.
And it's all connected. The energy that we're moving, whether it's through yoga or clearing chakras or ritual magic or praying.
Praying is the same thing.
It's wow.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, find your joy.
Find your joy.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.